Okay, so picture this with me.
Hmm.
A beautiful Sunday morning in Murray, Utah. Birds are singing, the sun is shining,
Right.
and a church parking lot sits quietly waiting for that day's service to begin.
Sounds peaceful.
It does. But amidst this really peaceful scene, a man arriving for church stumbles upon something truly horrifying.
Oh,
A woman, hidden among the shrubs, clinging to life, brutally beaten.
wow. That contrast, that disruption of tranquility, it immediately grabs you.
Right.
It's just this stark reminder that even in seemingly safe places, darkness can lurk.
Exactly. And that's the tragic reality of Corazone Franen, a
Mm.
26-year-old immigrant from the Philippines whose life was cut short in 1978.
Wow.
And today we're going to dive deep into her unsolved murder.
Okay.
We're going to try to piece together police reports, witness statements, and recent forensic developments to try and understand what happened that night.
So we're like stepping back in time, becoming detectives ourselves,
Yeah.
sifting through the clues, trying to make sense of this tragedy that has haunted this community for decades.
And the first piece of this puzzle is that chilling discovery in the church parking lot.
Okay.
It was David Lake, a churchgoer, who found Corazone that morning.
Mm-hmm.
He immediately called for help.
Right.
And the first responder on the scene was, believe it or not, the Murray police chief,
Okay.
who also happened to be the bishop of that very church.
Wow. Can you imagine the shock, the layers of responsibility he must have felt?
Right. It's a lot to process.
Yeah.
And the gravity of the situation was immediately clear.
Yeah.
Corazone was barely conscious, struggling to breathe. Her injuries were severe, especially to her head and face. They rushed her to the hospital, but sadly, she didn't make it.
Oh, that's so sad.
The brutality of the attack, just undeniable.
Yeah.
And the disheveled state of her clothing raised immediate concerns about possible sexual assault.
Right. Which just adds another layer of complexity to this case.
Absolutely. And as they tried to identify her, they found some grocery items scattered near her body.
Like,
Just ordinary things,
okay.
A can of fruit cocktail, a box of Angel food cake mix, some Jell-O.
Right. Those small details that often stick with you.
Yeah.
Those glimpses into everyday life abruptly interrupted by violence.
They make it feel more real.
It does.
They eventually identified her using a driver's license and checkbook found in her purse.
Okay.
But the address on the checkbook led them to her former roommates.
Oh.
Turns out Corazone had recently moved, adding another hurdle to this already complicated investigation.
Yeah, those early hours of an investigation are so crucial.
Oh, absolutely.
Every minute counts. So having to track down her new address
Oh.
must have been frustrating.
I can't imagine.
Adding precious time to this already time-sensitive situation.
Absolutely. And when they finally found her new apartment at Cobble Creek Apartments,
Okay.
it was another disturbing scene.
Oh.
Her white Cougar parked outside, blood stains all over it, a trail of blood leading towards the building.
Another piece of the puzzle, but also another question. If the final fatal attack happened at the church,
Right.
why was there so much blood at the car?
Right.
Was there a struggle there first?
Yeah.
Did someone try to move her?
It's a detail that just adds to the mystery
It really does.
and to complicate matters further.
Yeah.
It turned out that the apartment complex was technically outside the Murray Police Department's jurisdiction,
Really?
even though it was just a stone's throw from where she was found.
Ugh, those jurisdictional issues can be
Okay.
a real headache, can't they?
Yes.
Just imagine the frustration for everyone involved,
Yeah?
trying to sort out who's in charge
Right.
while a young woman's murder remains unsolved.
Ugh, such a bureaucratic hurdle.
Yeah, nobody wants to deal with that, especially in such a tragic situation.
Absolutely. And the case was eventually handed over to the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office.
Okay.
And they began the difficult task of piecing together Corazone's last hours.
Right.
They spoke with her roommate, Brenda,
Okay.
who had last seen her Friday morning. Brenda had been out on a date Saturday night, didn't get home till after midnight,
Right.
so she didn't have much information.
But there was one detail that stood out.
What's that?
Brenda mentioned seeing Corazone's car in the parking lot,
Okay.
both Saturday night and Sunday morning.
Huh.
Which, it begs the question,
Yeah.
if there was blood and potential evidence at the car,
Right.
how did she not notice?
That is strange.
Yeah.
Maybe it was dark, or maybe she parked on the other side of the lot,
Maybe.
or maybe whatever happened at the car happened after Brenda went inside.
Yeah, it's one of those details that just makes you wonder.
For sure.
Even seemingly small observations can be crucial in a complex investigation.
Absolutely.
Everything needs to be scrutinized.
Right.
Every possibility considered.
Fortunately, they were able to get a much clearer picture of Corazone's last hours
Okay.
from her in-laws,
All right.
Bert and Ada Ray Fransen.
Okay.
They had spent Saturday evening with her, having dinner and dancing at the university club.
It's heartbreaking to think that such an ordinary evening,
Yeah.
filled with family and simple pleasures,
Yeah.
would be one of the last times anyone saw Corazone as alive.
And it was during that grocery trip that a hint of something unsettling emerged.
Oh.
The Fransens told police that when they met Corazone at her car earlier that evening,
Okay.
she seemed shaken, mentioning a drunk driver who had been chasing her.
Oh, wow.
They couldn't provide a description.
Okay.
And Corazone didn't elaborate, but it definitely raises a red flag.
That detail, it just sends chills down your spine.
It does.
Was this a random encounter, or was someone targeting Corazone?
Right.
Was it connected to her murder?
Yeah, it's a question that just hangs over the entire investigation.
It does.
And as they dug deeper into Corazone's life, they learned that she was a quiet, hard-working woman, dedicated to her church and saving money to bring the rest of her family to the United States.
Okay.
She had no known enemies, no reason anyone would want to harm her.
It makes the brutality of her murder even more perplexing. Right.
Who would want to harm someone like Corazone? What was the motive?
Right.
Was it a random act of violence, or was there something more personal at play?
It's a mystery that deepens with every detail.
Yeah.
And as they focus on the circumstances surrounding her attack, they interviewed the security guard who was on duty at the apartment complex that night.
Okay.
His name's JP. And his story, well, let's just say it raises more questions than it answers.
Oh, how so?
Here we have a security guard, someone tasked with ensuring the safety of the residents,
Right.
claiming to have neither seen nor heard anything unusual that night.
It's hard to believe, considering the violence of the attack and the fact that there was evidence near her car in the parking lot.
Exactly. He didn't see her car.
Right.
He didn't hear any commotion, no screams.
Right.
And to add to the suspicion, he hadn't kept any visitor logs that night,
Really?
which was standard procedure.
It makes you wonder about his attentiveness,
Right.
his reliability as a witness.
Yeah.
Was he negligent? Was he somehow involved?
Yeah. Or was it just a series of unfortunate coincidences that allowed this tragedy to unfold under his watch?
It's hard to say for sure, but the inconsistencies in his story definitely raise eyebrows.
I can imagine.
Meanwhile, they were also following up on other potential leads.
Like what?
One of them involved a mysterious phone number scribbled on a piece of paper in Corazone's purse.
Ooh, that's a classic investigative thread.
Yeah.
A mysterious number, a potential connection to someone who might hold the key to understanding Corazone's life
Right.
or the events leading up to her death.
They traced the number to a woman whose son worked with Corazone.
Okay.
And she told detectives her son was quite upset about Corazone's death and couldn't understand why anyone would want to hurt her.
That's an interesting reaction.
Yeah.
It could be genuine grief, of course,
Right.
but it also makes you wonder if there was more to their relationship than met the eye.
And what's even more puzzling is that there's no record of the police ever interviewing the son. They seem to have just moved on to other leads, which is baffling considering the circumstances.
It's one of those details that makes you wonder if valuable opportunities were missed during the initial investigation. It's frustrating to think about those potential leads that might have gone unexplored.
It is.
But there's another person who caught the attention of investigators early on.
Yeah.
A co-worker of Corazone's, known as DB.
Sure.
DB quickly emerged as this figure of suspicion. He had a reputation for inappropriate behavior towards women.
Oh, really?
And there were allegations that he had made unwanted advances towards Corazone.
Not good.
Some coworkers even described him as being creepy and making them uncomfortable.
That's definitely not a good look.
Right.
And the fact that he had been recently fired from the company just adds another layer of intrigue.
Exactly.
Did he harbor resentment towards Corazone?
Yeah.
Had his unwanted attention escalated to something more dangerous?
Those were the questions investigators had to grapple with.
Right.
They eventually tracked him down for an interview, and he admitted to knowing Corazone and having spoken with her at work,
Okay.
mostly about their shared faith, but he denied ever asking her out or being alone with her.
Okay.
He claimed he was home with his wife on the night of the murder.
So an alibi.
Right, but was it solid?
Right.
Did they verify it with his wife?
Yeah.
The case files don't offer any details on that.
That lack of information is frustrating.
Isn't it? It leaves us wondering if this crucial step was even taken.
Right.
Without independent corroboration, an alibi is just a claim, not necessarily a fact.
That's another one of those missed opportunities.
Yeah.
Makes you question how thoroughly certain aspects of the investigation were pursued.
Yeah, I mean, and with DB's alibi seemingly checking out,
Right?
at least for the time being,
Yeah.
and the other leads going nowhere, the case started to cool down.
Really?
Yeah, they even offered a $2,000 reward for information.
Wow.
But it didn't lead to any breakthroughs.
It's heartbreaking to think about Corazone's family and friends, left with so many unanswered questions. Their hope for justice fading with each passing year.
And for decades, that's exactly what happened.
Wow.
The case remained unsolved, gathering dust in the archives.
It wasn't until 2011, more than 30 years after Corazone's murder,
Right.
that a glimmer of hope emerged.
This is where the story takes a fascinating turn, showcasing the power of persistence and advancements in forensic science.
I love that.
A newly formed cold case unit at the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office decided to take another look at the evidence.
Okay.
They even consulted with the VDOC Society.
The who?
The VDOC Society.
Right.
It's a group of volunteer experts who specialize in helping solve cold cases.
Oh, wow.
Their initial efforts didn't yield any significant leads,
Okay.
but they recommended exploring DNA testing.
Okay, so that recommendation was crucial.
Yeah.
It signaled a shift in the investigative approach.
Yeah.
A recognition that the answers to this decades-old mystery
Right.
might be hidden within the microscopic world of DNA.
It was a long shot,
Yeah.
but a shot nonetheless.
And a few years later, in 2013, they secured a grant to work on cold cases.
Okay.
And they decided it was finally time to test some of the evidence in Corazone's case for DNA.
Okay.
They had carefully preserved items from the crime scene. Her purse,
Okay.
a can of Ajax cleaning powder found near her car, even beer can found near the car,
Okay.
though they weren't sure if it was even related to the case.
Right.
They also had one of Corazone's shoes.
Okay.
Remember, she was found with one shoe on,
Right.
but the other one was discovered later in a nearby dirt field. It's almost as if someone had tried to dispose of it,
Yeah.
potentially trying to get rid of evidence.
Right. It's a detail that sends shivers down your spine.
It does.
The thought of the killer trying to cover their tracks.
They send all these items to the lab, hoping for a match.
Okay.
And they did get hits,
Really?
but not the clear-cut answer they were looking for.
Oh, no.
The results came back as a mixture of 3 unknown male profiles.
So a breakthrough,
Yeah.
but a frustratingly complicated one.
It's like having a blurry photograph.
Right.
You can see the outlines,
Uh-huh.
but the details are obscured.
Exactly. And so they were left with this tantalizing clue,
Right.
this partial answer that was just out of reach.
And the case went cold again for a few more years.
It's a waiting game at that point, a
Hmm.
race against time and fading memories.
But as technology continues to evolve,
Right.
the hope remains that one day these DNA profiles could yield a definitive answer.
And that's where Detective Ben Pender enters the picture.
He took over the case in 2016
Okay.
and really started digging deep in 2019.
Clearly determined to finally crack this case, even after all these years.
He teamed up with the Utah State Crime Lab,
Okay.
and they started re-examining the evidence, resubmitting that mysterious item with the mixed DNA profile from 2013, hoping new technology might be able to isolate a single profile.
It's a common strategy in cold cases. As DNA technology advances,
Right.
it becomes possible to reanalyze old evidence and extract new information that was previously unattainable.
They also submitted an item that had never been tested before, though Detective Pender keeps the details of that item under wraps.
Okay.
And they retested some of Corazone's clothing, hoping for a breakthrough.
This methodical approach is crucial.
It is.
By re-examining every piece of evidence, they're leaving no stone unturned.
Right. It's painstaking.
It is.
But it could lead to identifying Corazone's killer.
And it did lead to something,
Yeah.
though not exactly what they hoped for.
Oh.
Unfortunately, the results from the clothing and the mysterious new item came back as mixtures,
Oh.
too complex to analyze with current technology.
Another frustrating setback.
It's like those whispers in the dark we talked about earlier,
Right.
hinting at the identity of the killer, but not quite revealing their secrets. The delicate balance between hope and frustration
Yeah.
that often defines cold case investigations.
But there was a glimmer of hope amidst the disappointment.
There was.
One item, something found near Corazone's car.
Yeah.
yielded a full male DNA profile.
Finally, a solid lead.
This was a major turning point in the case.
Yeah.
A full DNA profile opens up a world of possibilities.
Right.
They could now enter this profile into CODIS,
Okay.
the National DNA Database, and potentially find a match.
It's like finally having that needle in the haystack, but then no match in CODIS.
Oh.
Back to square one, but not entirely.
Okay.
Even without a direct hit in CODIS, the DNA profile remains incredibly valuable.
Right.
They can now use it for familial DNA searching,
Okay.
potentially identifying relatives of the killer.
Oh.
Or for investigative genetic genealogy,
Right.
which can be used to trace family trees and potentially pinpoint the killer's identity.
So not a dead end, but a long and winding road.
Right.
And Detective Pender isn't giving up.
Right.
He's exploring other avenues, working with companies like Parabon Nanolabs
Oh, okay.
to see if they can get more information from that DNA profile.
Parabon specializes in advanced DNA analysis techniques, including phenotyping,
Okay.
which can predict a person's physical appearance based on their DNA,
Wow.
and genetic genealogy, which we mentioned earlier.
Right.
These tools offer new hope for solving even the most challenging cold cases.
While they wait for those results, they're also retesting items, trying to get even clearer DNA profiles.
Okay.
They're pulling out all the stops, hoping to get the answers they need.
It's a testament to the dedication of these investigators.
It is.
They haven't given up on Corazone.
No.
They understand that every new piece of information, every technological advancement brings them one step closer to identifying her killer.
But as Detective Pender knows, working with evidence that's over 4 decades old isn't easy.
No, it must be like trying to assemble a puzzle where some of the pieces are missing and others have faded with time.
Yeah. And there's always that risk of contamination, degradation, or even misinterpreting the evidence.
Absolutely. Evidence handling and preservation techniques have evolved so much over the years.
Yeah.
It requires meticulous attention to detail and a deep understanding of forensic science to ensure the integrity of the evidence and the reliability of the results.
And there's always that nagging fear that the DNA they're finding might belong to someone who was involved in the original investigation.
Oh, wow.
Like a detective or a crime scene technician. What a blow that would be.
It would be a devastating twist.
Yeah.
But it's a possibility investigators have to consider.
Right.
It underscores the importance of rigorous protocols and chain of custody procedures to prevent contamination and ensure the accuracy of the investigation.
Absolutely.
But in the midst of these challenges, Detective Pender received a call a few years ago that reignited the hope for justice in Corazone's case.
A new witness. A tip. What was it?
It wasn't a witness or a tipster.
Oh.
It was a call from Corazone's father, Jose.
Oh, wow.
After all these years, he and one of Corazone's sisters wanted to meet with Detective Pender to hear about the progress of the investigation and express their unwavering desire for answers.
What an emotional meeting that must have been.
It must have been.
To carry that pain and longing for justice for so many years.
It's hard to imagine.
It is.
It's a powerful reminder of the human cost of unsolved crimes.
Yeah.
For Corazone's family, this wasn't just a case file or a DNA profile.
Right.
It was the loss of a daughter, a sister, a loved one whose life was tragically cut short.
It's so sad.
Their presence was a powerful motivator for Detective Pender and his team.
I bet.
And Detective Pender assured them that he wouldn't give up on Corazone's case.
Oh, good.
That he was committed to finding the person responsible for her death and bringing them to justice.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's a promise that carries a lot of weight.
It does.
A testament to the enduring power of hope.
Yes.
Even in the face of unimaginable tragedy.
It's incredible.
It is.
It's incredibly moving to hear about that meeting.
Yeah.
To see the family's determination after all these years.
It is.
But with that full male DNA profile, investigators have some real tools at their disposal.
They do.
Even without a direct CODIS match.
Right. And this is where we see the power of forensic genealogy.
Okay.
They can use that profile to try familial DNA searching, which means looking for partial matches in CODIS, hoping to find a relative of the person whose DNA they have.
So it's like casting a wider net.
Exactly.
Looking for someone who shares enough DNA with the unknown suspect to suggest a family connection.
Yeah.
And then they can start building family trees, narrowing down the possibilities.
Exactly. It's a painstaking process, but it has been incredibly successful in cracking cold cases.
Wow.
And then there's investigative genetic genealogy, which it takes a step further. This is where they utilize public DNA databases, the ones people use for ancestry research, to search for matches to the DNA profile.
It's amazing to think about how this technology, originally intended for tracing family history, is now being used to solve crimes.
I know. It really speaks to the ingenuity and resourcefulness of those determined to find answers.
It does. It's like connecting the dots across generations.
Yeah.
Using family trees and genetic connections to potentially identify the killer.
But it's important to remember that these techniques also raise ethical considerations.
Right.
We need to think about privacy concerns.
Of course.
Potential for misuse.
Yeah.
And ensure that these powerful tools are used responsibly and transparently.
Absolutely. It's a delicate balance.
It is.
But in Corazone's case, these technologies offer a glimmer of hope.
They do.
A chance to finally identify her killer and provide some measure of closure for her family.
And that's what makes this case so captivating.
Yeah.
It's a testament to the enduring nature of hope, the power of scientific advancements, and the unwavering commitment of those seeking justice. It reminds us that no matter how much time passes, the truth can be uncovered.
It's a reminder that every life has value,
Yeah.
and every victim deserves justice.
Absolutely.
So where do we stand with the investigation today?
Well, the investigation is ongoing.
Okay.
Detective Pender and his team are still diligently analyzing DNA evidence, following up on leads, and exploring every possible avenue.
It's good to hear.
They haven't given up.
I'm glad.
And they weren't until Corazone's killer is brought to justice.
It's a long and winding road.
It is.
But it's a road worth traveling.
It is.
And if anyone listening has any information about Corazone's case, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, please reach out to Detective Ben Pender at the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office.
You might hold that missing piece of the puzzle that could finally solve this case.
Corazone's story is a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable tragedy, hope endures.
Yeah.
The pursuit of justice never truly ends. And it's a story that encourages us to keep asking questions, to keep seeking answers, and to never forget those whose lives have been touched by violence.
That's right.
If you enjoyed this deep dive and want to explore more fascinating, thought-provoking cases like this one, make sure to subscribe to The Deep Dive.
Yes.
We'll be back soon with another compelling story.
Great.
That will keep you on the edge of your seat.
Can't wait.
Until then, keep those lights on and stay curious.
Absolutely.